Good evening. My name is Curtis Duncan. I live in Southwest Atlanta in Miss Overstreet's district. And I'm here to urge City Council to vote no on giving the Atlanta Police Foundation at least $67 million for the building of Cop City. From the very beginning, this project has been based on a lie. The lie that police make us safer, the lie that we live in a democracy, and the lie that more police training reduces police violence. Nothing could be further from the truth. Police in this country exist for one reason and one reason at all, and that is to maintain the existing inequalities that have existed in the society from the very beginning. They exist for the rich to oppress the poor, for white to oppress the black, and for the rulers to oppress the ruled. The history of policing goes back to the slave patrols and to the Klan, and the same oppressive tactics that were once used to terrorize enslaved and formerly enslaved Africans are still used today. The slave patrols used to racially profile black people and ask them for their slave pass, and then confiscate their weapons and guns because they were scared of a slave rebellion. Today, NYPD and police departments all throughout the country stop and frisk mostly black and brown people and terrorize them. The actual commissioner of NYPD admitted that he is trying to instill fear in young black men when he justified this practice. The Klan used to conduct night raids to terrorize black people from exercising their right to vote and political power. Today, GBI, a so-called law enforcement agency founded by the Klan, the specific person's name is Samuel Roper, in 1946 to maintain white supremacy in the apartheid state of Georgia, it's still an apartheid state, now conducts raids to murder indigenous activists and arrest people who want to release people from jail rather than see them die by bed bugs like LaShawn Thompson. The GBI was not only involved in the recent raids of Tortuguita and the arrest of Atlanta Solidarity Fund, they were also involved in the Morris Ford lynching of 1946, where 8 black people, right here in the state of Georgia, were viciously murdered by the Klan under the orders of then the newly elected Governor Talmadge, who was looking to suppress the political power of black people in the state. Not only that, but the GBI was involved in the biggest domestic terrorist incident in U.S. history, the Atlanta child murders. The Atlanta child murders were carried out by the Klan to start a race war in protest of school busing, according to the GBI's own informant. The GBI did nothing for nearly 4 years and let the Klan terror reign in inner city black communities from 1979 up until 1983. This resulted in the deaths of at least 29 black people, including 16 children. Their deaths are still unsolved to this day. The GBI and the FBI later pinned all these deaths on Wayne Williams, a black man, with virtually no evidence in order to prevent a so-called race riot, i.e. black rebellion. This project is also based on the idea that America is a democracy. But I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that if America was a democracy, then none of us would be here on Muskogee Creek land. There will be no enslavement of Africans, Jim Crow, lynching of black people, which still continues today by the men and women in blue. If we lived in a democracy, there would be no political prisoners who still languish in jail to this day. There would not be any political assassinations of Dr. Martin Luther King, Fred Hampton Jr., and recently, Tortuguita. The reality is that we don't live in a democracy. And this is why we have militarized police to maintain the rule of white supremacy and capital. If we lived in a true democracy, none of this process would ever be taking place right now, because the people of DeKalb County will be deciding what is best to do with the South River Forest. More training does not reduce police violence. The police are very well trained, and they're trained to repress and oppress poor black and brown communities, and they do this with impunity and without restraint. Recently, I visited the Georgia Sea Islands, and I learned about Roswell King. Who is Roswell King, you might ask? He was a brutal slave overseer and serial rapist of black women. European visitors, when they visited the plantations of South Georgia, were shocked by the amount of mixed-race people who existed on the plantation. He later went on to become a plantation owner in what is known as the city of Roswell. They named it after him. And he became a very prominent supporter of the Confederate war effort. Now, who was one of the descendants of Mr. King? Governor Brian Kemp. You don't have to believe me, just ask AJC. Governor Kemp, the person who has recently banned women's choice in the midst of rape, the top funder of the Atlanta Police Foundation, and dictator who prevented the defunding of police on a local level. So when you are siding with Cop City, you are siding with Governor Kemp and his extreme right-wing agenda. Governor Kemp is more right-wing than Donald Trump. I don't think there's any Trump supporters in here, hopefully not. But just be clear that when you are siding with Cop City, you are siding with fascism. Finally, this project is based upon genocide and fraud. The genocide being the brutal murder of indigenous forest defender Tortuguita by the definitions of the United Nations, whose killing is reminiscent of the wholesale genocide of native peoples to so-called build this country, just like Atlanta City Council wants to build this cop playground. And the fraud being the fact that Atlanta officials have lied for nearly 2 years about the cost. City Council, if I offer you a Coke and a smile for 99 cents for 2 years straight, and then come around and say, oh, it's actually $20.99, you all will probably send a GBI to my house to conduct a raid. Because you'll realize that I've committed fraud. And when anything contractually is based